Okay. Yeah, let's go. Hello, everyone. Yeah, Friday morning. What a week. What a week. Quite a dramatic week we have here this week, and it's been full of a lot of stories. Yesterday, I did, go through the sentencing for Nnamdi Kanu, and the reaction. It was not received well by a given group of people. Then we had also those that were really happy that he got sentenced to life. Nnamdi Kanu, love him or you hate him, has been a central figure in the Biafra struggle. So as it was expected, you had a lot of people with very, very, very strong emotions towards what happened. And while I was on stream, I had a lot of people coming to my comment section saying it's time for war. And I was like, wait a minute. He's gonna appeal that case, and I hope he gets a very, very good lawyer. Mixed reaction trailed the whole sentencing. So now we're gonna go through that. Yesterday also I started going through and reviewing the US Congress hearing about Trump's designation of Nigeria as a country of concern. Not just country of concern, but country of a particular concern, CPC, following the widespread killing, and according to what Trump target, the persecution of Christians. And it's not mincing words. Also, I got some other news in that review that, the Nigerian government is working with the United States government. I would say that we're running out of time because these guys, they've actually spread across the country lines. But I'm going to start with Kanu's stuff because that's still fresh. This is the lawyer. I can't even call him lawyer. Maybe I'll call him consultant because at some point, Kanu had no lawyer. And I don't know what strategy that was because that really wouldn't work to his favor. But again, let's just listen to one of the former lawyers or the consultant. He also hinted on filing an appeal. So Nnamdi Wike has suffered the highest level of injustice by international standard in Nigeria. While he was enjoying bail, the government prosecuting him unprovoked invaded his home, killing 38 people. That was really, really uncalled for. And people have been also having this equivalent, discussion that, okay, fine, what about Sunday Igboho? What about Gumi? What about all these other guys that have supported certain groups? How come is Nnamdi Kanu that is given life imprisonment? Yesterday also I reviewed two major verdicts that had come out of the court. One was given 20 years and another 15 years. The 20 years have actually coordinated and got himself involved in multiple attacks. So when you compare that, this seems harsh. Let's listen to
I want to start by commending the people of Southeast, the Igbo people, for listening to us yesterday. We are calling inside the court, calling from courts, chatting that nobody should take laws into their hand because 80%, if not 90% of the people of Southeast, the Igbos, they are with Nnamdi Kanu.
Yeah, true.
They know that Nnamdi Kanu is not a criminal, is not a terrorist. I want to commend them. That one is on that. Then secondly, Dr. Bat, you said that you know all that transpired yesterday. I beg to disagree. You don't know all that transpired yesterday. Because what you people, just like Vimbai commended the judiciary for allowing to stream the judgment live. Now you ask yourself, what stopped the judiciary from streaming the trial live so that people will understand what happened? But that one is a different ballgame.
Just a moment. I didn't say that I know what transpired. I was not in the court.
Okay.
When did I say I know all that transpired yesterday?
Okay.
I just asked you to react to what happened yesterday. I didn't say so.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I was not in open court.
Sorry, I would have known. I withdraw it.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Sorry, sir. Now, I also want to call all well-meaning Nigerians to join hands into this matter so that the Court of Appeal will set aside this judgment. Doctor, but I want to tell you that as I
have a strong inclination that the judgment might be set aside, or there might be also like a reduction, massive reduction in the pronouncement. Again, that's how this thing works itself through. But that being said, it might also be like more like a strategy from the federal government to just keep this thing going as long as they can, because justice delayed is justice denied in a way. But that being said, this is my advice to Kanu and his team. Okay, and again, they are at liberty not to accept it. Okay, you need a very good lawyer, and you need the lawyers. You need to let them do their job. You need to let them do their job, because when you are in front of the justice, or you're in front of the judge, or whoever is presiding over the case, see, opinions would not really matter, because they have to judge based on the evidence is put in front of them. So again, I'm saying let him get tough lawyers that can fight hard, lawyers that can look the justice in the face with facts and tell the justice or the judge that you've heard in a matter of law. That's just my advice to Nnamdi Kanu.
Yesterday, when the judgment was given, there in America, where our delegates were facing the U.S. Congress, one of the congressmen now raised this issue. He narrated the kind of injustice Nnamdi Kanu have suffered in the hands of Nigeria, as if the man is a Nigerian. So most of the times when you are talking, these people get information more than you. Let me just start by saying that Nnamdi Kanu has suffered the highest injustice any other person can suffer in the whole world, here in Nigeria, in his own country. One, he was enjoying his bail. Government, the prosecutor, who is prosecuting him, went to his house in Afaruku, unprovoked, and they killed 38 persons and left with 13 corpses as we speak. As we are talking about as a
that was brutal. That was brutal. Yeah.
result of that, he lost the parents. Now, that, as if that one is not enough, Nnamdi Kanu ran away and deposed affidavits from Israel. My Lord, I'm in Israel. Look at the circumstances that made me to run away. The affidavits who have it is in the court file. Please, if my Lord can guarantee my security, I will come back to face my trial. While that one was on, he was unlawfully brought back to Nigeria here. And the United Nations, through their special rapporteur, gave a decision saying that Nnamdi Kanu never is not a terrorist, Nnamdi Kanu never jumped bail, that as a matter of urgency, that Nigeria should release Nnamdi Kanu. They refused that judgment. Federal High Court in Umuahia look at all the whole matters we filed, and they said that Nnamdi Kanu should be released, and that federal government should pay Nnamdi Kanu 50 billion naira. As we speak to you, the federal government has not complied with that judgment. The same thing applied to Enugu High Court and what have you. I'm not talking about that of Kenya. Coming back to Nigeria here, we continue with the trial. Then Court of Appeal unanimously discharged Nnamdi Kanu, and they said that no court should try Nnamdi Kanu. Federal government refused to comply with that order, and they kept Nnamdi Kanu unlawfully for 9 days before they now file what they call motion for stay in a criminal matter, the first in history. Okay. Now, when they file the motion for stay, the matter gets to Supreme Court. Supreme Court, in looking at all these things, Supreme Court made an decision. One, that Nnamdi Kanu never jumped bail. The court ought not have revoked his bail, and they condemned the attitude of military, sending Operation Python dams in his house and massacred many people there. All right. And they directed the Federal High Court. Let me finish. Let me make this submission. And they referred the matter back to Federal High Court to continue with the trial, with the intention that the matter will continue with the Honorable Justice Binta Nyako's court. Okay. So when we get there, Binta Nyako now recused himself. The matter now get back to Justice Omotosho. Yeah. Nnamdi Kanu took a fresh plea. That plea Nnamdi Kanu took before Justice Binta Nyako is no longer effective. He now took a plea, a fresh plea in a fresh court, starting de novo.
Okay,
now that was where the issue of repeal law comes in.
Okay, so again, yeah, that's just a summary of what has happened. Again, I mean, the killing of 38 people in his home, the unrest in the southeast, you know, you could argue it here or there. It's just crazy. And yeah, that's a big issue. That's a really big issue. We're waiting. By now, I think they should have filed the appeal. You know, they should have filed the appeal. As I read the Kubo to Nigeria may have the capacity to condemn them. I swear by Allah that I will shoot down the helicopter, threatening the viral footage. What has Tinubu government done to this man to today? He's still walking free, making threats to US government. Yeah, people are just saying that, okay, fine, if you're arresting Nnamdi Kanu, what about this guy? You know, what about all that he has said? The court should give all these idiots 1 year each. What? What does it mean? So this might be, okay, let me hear you.
Them off from the back. Shooting where again? Shooting in Okota, they are shooting also in Okota. People must go to the bush, ambush them. Go to the bush, you need to cut them off from the back, ambush them, take their guns from them and kill them. These are animals, are not human beings. They may be wearing police, they are not human beings. These are terrorists from Niger. These are terrorists from Gambia. These are foreign terrorists from Chad. They are not human beings. Disarm them and kill them. If you allow them to scare you off the streets, your life is over. Your life is over.
Yep.
And I want
again, yeah, so people are like referencing this, but again, I'm saying, what about guys that are actively killing people? Why are we giving them peace meetings? Why are we having them have a chit chat with the law enforcement? Again, I just hope this guy gets a very, very good lawyer. I don't know much about the capacity of this current lawyer that he has, and he should allow the lawyers to do their job. Because when you get into, okay, so in Nnamdi Kanu, unbroken, unbowed, unbent, okay, yeah, we'll see. A Yoruba Muslim, exactly. There's no way you're gonna, pin this thing. There would be certain tribal and religious sentiment, and again, unfortunately, that's how we see things in Nigeria. That's just how things have been seen in Nigeria. Again, I'm just looking at the intention. Look at this. When Nnamdi Kanu went to US to solicit for funds to purchase arms and ammunition for Biafra, this is the only man who was reasonable enough to ask Nnamdi Kanu some salient questions. Same question I've been asking for the past 12 years. Has any state in the Southeast complained that FG withheld their allocation for 1 day? What has Igbo elders, leaders, and allies done to Southeasterners to help Southeasterners? Okay, let's listen to this question.
The fact of the matter is that we have to speak the truth. It may not sound very palatable, but as our
so this was 12 years ago, okay?
Spoke earlier about truthfulness and honesty.
Hi, welcome to the show.
Let me again thank you for the effort you are making.
The quality of the video is very bad.
All of us Igbos and thank you for But I have a question to ask. Because after a while, we're going to start thinking. I don't want Nnamdi to accept the fact that the change in name will make us different.
No, so this is an Igbo man asking questions.
As we stand here today, there are at least 7 states that are predominantly Igbos. And in the context of Nigeria, none of them have reported to us that they never received a federal allocation. And as I see, even you and I here, we have not agitated in the state we come from to make things better for our people.
Fair question. 12 years ago. Yeah.
Tip O'Neill, when he was Speaker of the House in the United States, said all politics are what? Local. You see, when we say Igbo states, Igbo people are doing extraordinarily well, and they will even do better if they stay on their own. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is about that if we separate, we become great. Let us use the latest country created by the United Nations called South Sudan. At the inception of this very small country, which is very large, it was all about the excitement. But now people are what?
12 years ago, we still talking about South Sudan yesterday.
The issue is not whether we answer Biafra or Nigeria.
Okay.
The issue is what are we doing for ourselves and them. And I know you said you lived back home and you came here. And I don't know what passport you traveled with. Because I know on the international level, unless the rule have changed, there is no country known in the United Nations as one. Biafra. You must have come here through a recognized nation passport, or you may have smuggled it. So my brother, my question to you is, before we start talking about what the Hausas are doing to us, have we talked about what we're doing to clean our house? Thank you very much.
Yeah, so again, that's a point where the Southeast leaders, I'm not so sure they're even interested in the program of them getting out of Nigeria. Because what is it with this Ohaneze group coming to tell us that nobody should contest against Tinubu come 2027? Even the Southwest that Tinubu is from, they're not even making such statements. So we need to be able to come to grips with the reality on ground. But first thing first, the case has to be appealed. Nnamdi Kanu has to get a good lawyer. If he wants to, again, he has the right to defend himself. Okay, so this was what he wore to court. We're hauling Nnamdi Kanu now. Sunday Igboho and Nnamdi Kanu were offered 50 billion. Igboho took it, but Kanu rejected it, standing firm for his people's freedom. Oh, really? Let's listen to this.
Hey, man. Sunday Igboho collect 50 billion. You collect them for peacefully. Collect 50 million.
I don't understand what he's talking about.
When you give Nnamdi Kanu go buy 50 billion.
That may not be true.
Pẹ̀lú gbogbo ẹ̀, ó náà wọ́n fẹ́ pé debt or Biafra. Ẹ̀yin bá ń sinmi, tó bá gbówó fẹ́mi, èmi máa gbówó. Èmi ò ní jagun mọ́ o, tẹ́mi bá rówó, èmi ò ní jagun mọ́ o. Bí Sunday Igboho ṣe ń gbádùn báyìí. Sunday Igboho dey yọ̀tọ̀ mi because ọ̀nà ò jagun mọ́.
Yeah, I don't know. That might not be true.
5% don't fight for them.
Anyway, I'm gonna move on this. Yeah, so that's it. Use words. Justice James Omotosha used word directly from Nnamdi Kanu to convict Nnamdi Kanu. Yeah, to life. I mean, that's another thing. The sit-at-home legacy of Nnamdi Kanu just retweet and tag. What is this? Oh, so these were when, the sit-at-home thing became really crazy. And as you can see from the background, kind of mayhem being unleashed on the people of the Southeast because of a sit-at-home order. Again, sit-at-home order, and this is also a terrorist giving a press conference. So you can see that it's all messed up. No matter how you look at it, the sentence of Nnamdi Kanu by Justice Omotosha has shown nothing but reestablish and reconfirm the Igbo's 8. There will be a time when these sins against the Igbo man will be revisited. Okay, so again, that's that about that. I've gone through a lot of all these things that happened, and it's quite unfortunate. Now, there's Peter Obi has been called out. Okay, look at that. Peter Obi choosing to be quiet on issues involving Nnamdi Kanu. Judgment reveal a lot about his political courage and what makes him different from the men he chooses to dislodge from power. Ready or not? Question mark. Okay, I honestly don't want to believe you did this to set him up for drag or whatever. I'm sure in one way or the other you can reach out to him privately. It's enough. Honestly, it's enough. Now this guy respond. I'm confused. What does set up for drag means? I have this and still can't comprehend the meaning. I'm waiting for you lots at this junction. Very corny and despicable of you. If you ask me, Akin, the man was screaming about these insecurities for months now, but APC unleashed their attack dog to label him obituary man. Get PO's name out of your mouth. Okay, you can use your platform to speak up true. After all, you are not Igbo. So you shouldn't be affected by any negative political agenda that we all can see in play. Tinubu, the president, has not said anything. You guys should leave Peter Obi alone. The president said a lot through the judgment of the court. Again, I believe that a political solution would be it. Okay? Would be it. And that's it. So we see insecurity trending, Shea Gumi trending, and all of those. Let's look at this. Insecurity. Let me see what we've got. Okay, I think I listened to this yesterday about insecurity. You shouldn't be negotiating with terrorists. I 100% agree with this guy. You shouldn't negotiate with terrorists. Let's see.
If you have the bandits on your side, I'm telling you, Lakara will not have a footstep in Nigeria.
Oh, okay. So the bandits will now, attack them instead, and then.
Oh, definitely, because even the bandits, they have area of control. This one doesn't encroach on this area, and this one doesn't encroach in the area.
Interesting.
So when you make peace with bandits, they will protect for you the forest you are talking about.
What a retarded submission. Protect terrorists so that they can protect you. Then just surrender. Then have terrorists walk into Aso Rock so that they can rule the country. What retarded take? You don't make peace with this kind of people. The Islamic terrorists, you don't. It's quite messed up. People that can kill another human for whatever agenda don't deserve to live. In fact, they've agreed that they are not living.
All right, Sheikh. Thank you very much.
They'll prevent further kidnap, and then gradually and slowly, gradually educate them and civilize them.
All right,
civilized terrorists.
Thank you very much, Sheikh.
You need to spend money.
You see, this thing that Sheikh Gumi is saying is a very terrible and a very wrong idea. You cannot negotiate with a terrorist that you have not yet conquered. Because right now, and even the Nigerian government wants...
There shouldn't even be no negotiation. Once you kill someone, it should be clear as day. Your life goes for it.
Negotiate with them. Not be them one negotiate with you.
Exactly. So you're negotiating from a position of weakness, quite unfortunately. Because they are not putting down their arms. They are not believing, that, okay.
I don't want to negotiate with you. You are the one wanting to negotiate with them. And you cannot negotiate with a terrorist that you've not conquered. You cannot. Any negotiation that should be discussed should be coming from surrender. It should be coming from the
Niger State at the moment, Channels TV. What's happening in Niger State?
Now they're supposed to bet, say, okay, maybe after you don't show the heavy force. They've seen the might of our military. They've seen force. And like 60% of them don't go down. The remaining 40%, and they're they beg you. Say, yes, we want surrender. Then you fake them and probably then integrate them back into the system. But right now, if you are asking them for negotiation and you are putting them into the army, what
the hell? Whoa, thanks for that, Nee. Look at what is happening. Bro, something is... Bandits abduct students from Catholic school again in Nigeria despite warning. So there was a warning. This was updated 23 minutes ago. Armed assailant raided St. Mary Private Catholic Secondary School in Papiri, Niger State around 2 a.m. I'm just waking up, okay, to do this right now. So you had what happened in Kwara State. Now you have Niger State. You have failed what? Tinubu, it's over. And I was saying this thing. If Tinubu thought, okay, so this is what I'm thinking happened. Tinubu thought he could still manage this crisis and win his 2027 elections. So instead of him and his party focusing on how to deliver good governance to the people, you know what he did? He focused on consolidating power. He focused on ensuring that the opposition becomes dismantled. Now, I'm not giving the opposition a pass here. I'm not saying that the opposition also doesn't carry part of the blame, because they've shown themselves to not be serious. From ADC to LP to, which one again? To PDP. I mean, look at the Anambra State elections. So Tinubu thought if he could consolidate power, weaken the opposition, then it's going to have a field day in 2027. While people were being killed. Now, 2 a.m. this morning. Can you imagine living a life where you don't even know what happens next? This happened despite government's order to suspend boarding due to bandit threat, which the school ignored by reopening without clearance. So the school went on to reopen without clearance. What? Police, military, and tactical team are searching nearby forests for rescue, while officials blame the school for the avoidable tragedy amid rising school attack in northern Nigeria. Again, two things about this. The plan of these bandits and these terrorists is that no life continues. So you've got to wait. How come we live in a country where we cannot actually do what we want to do? And as this goes on, there are a lot of powerful forces behind the scene. At this point, for me, I just think, you have to just look at it that, you know what? In this, you are the one in the arena, and you must be ready, whatever it takes, to solve this problem. You failed woefully. Official A. Abat, tender your resignation now. Terrorists invade Catholic school in Niger, abduct students and staff. Over 100 abducted again in Niger just this morning. Do you know how insane this is? Mr. Tinubu, this is Macaroni speaking. You said you have all the answers to end terrorism. You said any president who could not protect the people is incompetent. Any school child that has been adopted is a result of your incompetence. The blood of that has been shed as an act of terrorism is on your head. This is war. We're yet to recover Kebbi girls, and now we have 100 school students kidnapped. Wow, I didn't even see this news. Terrorists attack Catholic schools in Niger, kidnap students. Wow. Wow, let's look at this.
Yesterday's date is the 20th of November, 2025.
Okay.
Yesterday night, today is the 21st. Bandits in their numbers attacked. They stormed St. Mary Primary and
And one retard will tell me, oh, what about Muslims being killed? Hello? And the question they ask them is by who? How come there's this week alone, systematic? Now, the kidnapping for Kebbi was Muslim school, but who did the kidnapping? Islamist extremist. So now we have another Christian school. This country needs prayer. Yeah, we've been praying. We need to act. We need good strategy to act.
St. Mary Private Primary and Secondary School, Papri and Gwara local government area of Niger State. They stormed that school yesterday night. These guys came with over 60 motorcycles. 60.
Whoa.
I'm just telling you fact. 60 motorcycles, and they came also with van. Now, that school is a boarding school, a mixed boarding school with boys and girls.
Okay.
They kidnapped over, right now, I can't give you the exact number of students or pupils that are missing, but it is over 100.
Whoa.
100. I'm telling you that fact. Over 100 people are said to be missing, including teachers and students.
But don't worry, we're going to have, a peace talk with the bandits. Have you heard about the story of the cake, the poem about the snake? About the snake? Have you heard about it? I think they need to read that for Gumi. I'm going to look for it.
This one happened yesterday night in Niger State here. Papri, the school name is St. Mary Private Primary and Secondary School, Papri and Gwara local government area of Niger State. These guys came with over 60 bikes and van. Right now, we can tell you, I can confirm to you right now that the number of people that are missing is not yet verified, but we are looking at over 100 because the van that they came with was full. It was full. It was so guys, these guys have started going to schools now. See, we are at war. You know the story. We are at war with bandits. So now they have shifted attention to schools now. They have now shifted attention to boarding schools. On Sunday, it was Maga where they kidnapped 25. We are still looking for the 25 that they kidnapped, yet to be found. They kidnapped another one again yesterday night.
Wow. And that's just crazy. So possibly while I was streaming yesterday night, kidnapping was going on. Wow. Wow. Sorry, I just want to... It's so crazy that right now, you know, I was reading it. I didn't even know that there were like 950 units. Okay. Nigeria. So let me see that. Terrorists invade Catholic school in Niger, abduct students. Look at the hotspot. Government stormed Catholic school. So this was the area. This is Benin. So, of course, that's very close to the border. So I don't know why we can't protect this border. Look at that. Wow. This is Nigeria, right? So this is an hotspot right now. Government stormed the Catholic school, kidnapped more than 100. This is just a replay of Chibok. This is a replay of Chibok. Who are those behind this? By now, if the president does not know those behind him, then he should step down. Behind this, he should step down. Police tactical unit, military components deployed to Papari for immediate rescue of kidnapped students. The Niger State Command wished to confirm that on the 21st of November 2025, this is Benjamin Udeyin, the police spokesperson, public relation officer. The Niger State Police Command wishes to confirm that on the 21st of November 2025 at about 2 a.m., report received indicate that some armed bandits, they're not armed bandits alone, they're terrorists. Call them terrorists. We're using that name now to be like a band. These are terrorists. Invaded St. Mary Private Catholic Secondary School, Papiri, Agua local government, and abducted a yet to be ascertained number of students from the school hostel. However, police tactical unit, military components, and other security agencies have moved to the scene. Why weren't you there when it was happening? Why is it that it's always been done before you guys move? Come in the forest with a view to rescue the abducted student. In view of this, the Commissioner of Police, Niger State Command CP, Adamu Abdullahi El-Imen, reiterated the command's commitment to rescue the students on earth and appealed to members of the public to remain calm and support security operations to rescue the student. He further assured that these incidents will be investigated and necessary action will be taken against school management for continuing academic activity, contrary to the state government directive on closure of school in the area due to security challenge. Now you want to blame the private school. Now you want to, because you cannot secure life and property, now you want to blame the private school. Again, I mean, if I'm a parent, I would never send my child to a boarding school when I know that it's actually a prime attack. But what happens? So if they stop the boarding school, what about the day school? And it's this guy, this is the governor. Has he said anything? The Niger State government has condemned the kidnapping of pupils from St. Mary's School in Papiri, Aguara, and local government, saying the incident occurred after the school reopened without government clearance despite a prior directive suspending boarding activities in the area. So again, I think if the school cannot protect those people staying there, if they don't have armed gunmen that can overpower all these terrorists, they are not bandits, they are terrorists, then why open? So the blame goes all around. That's crazy. Now, this has made it to a now, whatever happens today in Nigeria with respect to insecurity, just know that in the next hour, it gets broadcasted internationally. This is Fox News, Faith Under Fire. What a title. Faith Under Fire, gunmen storm. So this is Fox News, so it's global. It's global. Because when I said it, I told Tinubu, if you don't do something, you think you have all these things under lock and keys. You think the best thing is not for you. This guy has not even come out to have a press conference. A real press conference. I'm not this one that he says during a party. Again, I know that some of these things might be a direct attack on his candidacy. Possibly. This thing is bigger than him. But you are the commander-in-chief. Oh, sorry, I'm not. You know, when you were grabbing it, snatching it, and running away with it, this was part of the baggage. Maybe he made a deal with the devil. Maybe he made a deal with the devil. And now there's nothing he can do. I was talking about David and his chief of army staff as a king of Israel then, that he couldn't do anything to the chief of army staff because those guys were powerful. And he said it. He told Solomon, these guys are too powerful for me. So when you become king, deal with them. There are people that are powerful at times more than the president of a nation. And that's why when you see Trump behave like a madman, at times I understand. Because they are powerful, there are principalities, there are powers. Over 100 student kidnapped in Niger State, again, +1 in Kebbi, plus the ones in Kebbi. All of this in less than 48 freaking hours. How many Christian terrorists have invaded school to kidnap students in Nigeria? This is another kidnapping, not up to 24 hours after the US Congress on Christian genocide. Now they're doing it because they know their time is up. Hi, Adiola. This is crazy. This is crazy. So now, what is the president saying? Kebbi girls, CAC church attack, Ekuru farmers, thousands of kidnapping. Those terrorists have invaded Catholic school again this morning, all in 1 month. All in 1 month. All in 1 month. All in 1 month. This is ridiculous. All in 1 month. Since INEC chairman announced president's results for 5 a.m., we never rest. Okay, I've seen this one. Now they're blaming the school. I blame you, the school also, because really, like, at this point, that's the plan. How can they defeat terrorists? Let me read this comment. How can they defeat terrorists when they are being recruited into the military? That was the most retarded thing that was done. Instead of charging and killing them or unaliving them, if you kill someone, one person, sorry, you should be on the chopping block. President Tinubu is complicit. I agree. He and his VPs are both Muslims. People said it. I mean, the red flag was there. Again, I said then that there was no way, politically speaking, that Tinubu would have become president if he didn't select a Muslim from the north, because it was just numbers. But this was the concern that people had. They're both Muslims. And the churches have been attacked. The Muslim schools also have been attacked. At least the one that happened in Kebbi is Muslim. Every life in Nigeria matters. But does it really matter to the politicians? And that's a question. It's no more unconfirmed, it's confirmed. But unconfirmed number of pupils, okay, I see what they're doing there. Students and teachers have been kidnapped from St. Mary Catholic Primary and Secondary School in Niger State. This is the guy that I always dance at Shiwaju. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. When you don't tame the monster in your religion, this is what happens. Everybody should speak about it. Dubai is one of the countries that is one of the peaceful countries in the world today. Why? Because they take active step to tame the monster in their religion. So you cannot even try to preach some ideology in Dubai. And they're serious and intentional about it. Why can't the northern Nigeria be like a UAE? Why do we have to put up with this? And I'm tired of blaming, it's the neighboring countries. To hell with that excuse. You are the president and secure the country. But the problem is that a lot of people are sympathetic to these guys. That's why Sheikh Gumi can come out and open his wretched mouth and start talking about we need to have peace with them. No, you don't have peace with terrorists. You don't negotiate with terrorists. Here you go. Look at that. Breaking terrorists have attacked. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Young students having their lives just disrupted. Even the trauma. God protect us, our family, and our country. Man. You know, I cover a lot of global news. For my politics, primarily, you know, I cover a lot of US news, but I've just been focused on Nigeria because it's just important. But again, this stuff is just crazy. Bitcoin crashes over 10% below 81,000. Bro, bloodbath everywhere. Look at the dump. It's not been a very good week. Even in the financial market, markets are down. The Nigerian stock market is also down because, again, how can you have economic freedom when security is not being put as a priority? Look at that. Look at what is happening. Since Trump started talking about that, look at the Nigerian market. It's just been down. Look at this is Access Bank. Again today, went down. UBA went down. Look at that. From $50 to now $37. Zenith Bank down. That's what happens. You're pursuing prosperity without any strategy on security. No firm strategy. It's only Agbomagbe that is up. That is really up today. First Bank also is a little bit up. Okay, a little bit up. GT from almost 100, like 102, is down. Why? Trump said he's going to designate this country as a country of particular concerns. Foreign investors started selling off their shares. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. Although they're spinning it as though, no, people are just selling because they made a lot of money. No, they sell when they see that the future is becoming bleak. Yeah, not a good week, bro. Not a good week. Not a good week. Close schools in the north to save lives. Well, that's what the Boko Haram wants. Boko means education against Western education. That is what they want. But at this point in time, at least at the minimum, close down the boarding schools. At the minimum, close down the boarding schools. At the minimum. Anyways, it is what it is. It is what it is. It is what it is, man. School ignored red alerts. If them not enter Lagos or Abuja, them not go take this thing serious. At some point, we saw them, they attacked a prison in Abuja. This must stop now. No child should wake up in fear of their own school. Yeah, this is one of the white Nigerian, that's what he calls himself. My country first, Nigeria first. Again, who exactly are you referring to? Please be specific about the person responsible for stopping terrorism in Nigeria so we can join you in addressing them. Let me see. Channels TV should have said something about that. Let me see. Wow, this is crazy. This is crazy. Yeah, they're doing some other live stream. Okay. Well, everything is all about Nnamdi Kanu today, right? Okay, so this is their own coverage. Government have reportedly kidnapped an undisclosed number of students, over 100. How do you kidnap 100? 100. Hi, welcome to the show. Yeah, that's crazy. I was learning that the attackers stormed the school said to be a private Catholic school. Yeah, private Catholic school. All the people you are seeing here are parents who have come to pick their children. Since morning, some have picked their children and left. Wow, this is crazy. This is crazy. I don't even know what to say. This is crazy. Yeah, this is really crazy. Okay, let me see if I can move on. I don't even know how to move on, to be honest with you. Terrorist trending with 248,000 posts. Okay, let me see. VDM pleads to Sheikh Gumi to free the abducted kid and others in captivity. The government can continue to turn a blind eye to the fact that Sheikh Gumi is a terrorist sympathizer. Okay.
10 to 19 years old. Only God knows what they are doing to those kids as we speak.
Yeah.
Sheikh Gumi, 32 kids were abducted in KB State. Sheikh Gumi, while a church service was going on at CAC in Kwara State, terrorists entered into the church. They were shooting up.
I mean, if you see the old woman that was running, you see it brings tears to the eyes.
And at the end of the day, they killed some people. Not just that, they carried about 38 of them. And as we speak now, they are requesting for 100 million naira per head. Sheikh Gumi, please, I beg you, we need those kids back. These are your people. At the end of the day,
he came to
you are defaming him, you must bring proof. Sheikh Gumi, these terrorists are your people.
That's what he said.
These terrorists are your people. You have said it before that these people are on a revenge mission. What revenge mission? What did they do to these people? What did they do to these people that they are revenging? Even if you want to revenge, why are you carrying kids from school?
Yeah, they attack the soft spot. They won't attack Aso Rock. They're not gonna attack Aso Rock, bro. Gumi is a terrorist. Anyone that is saying it is Igbo that was convicted should know this. It's Nnamdi Kanu that was convicted as a terrorist. What the hell is this guy talking about? Nnamdi is not Indigbo, okay? Indigbo is not Nnamdi Kanu. IPOP is not Indigbo. Indigbo is not IPOP. This is an Igbo guy. Who knows this guy? What's he talking about?
In Nigeria, I made a broadcast in England. Yes. And in 9 charges leveled against me. This place where I committed this crime was London, in the United Kingdom. Yes. When my lawyers came to see me, I had a discussion with them about how I'm going to defend myself. I told them that no court in Nigeria has jurisdiction to try me. Because since this offense was committed in England, so they said.
No, they can extradite you, okay?
It's only a UK court.
Okay, did I just hear that he committed the crime?
Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Okay.
Okay. Oh, you committed it in England, but they were broadcasting your radio beer fraud. You have been shouting, "We are here, we are direct." People in so place.
Okay, I want to move on. Let me just see what's happening. All of us will learn. See what terrorists they carry. Look at the gun. This is what the Nigerian military wants to face. Look at the guns, bro. Wow. So they can trace the manufacturer of this color and know the sponsor. Yeah, exactly. 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 Wow. Okay. Let me see this. Indian Teja jet crashes at a Dubai air show. Pilot killed. During the final days of the Dubai air show on Friday, an Indian Air Force Teja fighter jet crashed around 2:10 p.m. local time in India while performing low-level aerobatics. The single-engine aircraft, a symbol of India aerospace self-reliance, built by Hindustan Aeronautic Limited, exploded on impact about a mile from spectators with no ground injury reported. The Indian Air Force confirmed that the pilot's fatal injuries, expressed regret, pledged family support, and ordered a court of inquiry. This is only the second known Teja crash since entering the service. Wow, so viewers' discretion viewers' discretion here. This was a show. Look at that. What the hell? Look at that, bro. Wow. Wow. Hi, Sachi. Man, and I don't know even if he has a family member and all those there. Deeply saddened, Rahul Gandhi, by the loss of a brave IAF soldier. IF pilot rather, in the Teja crash at the Dubai air show. My heartfelt condolence to this family. The nation stands with them. Wow, that's just in another news. I just saw that trending. I said I should bring that in, bro. I mean, not a good week, bro. Not a good week. Okay, not a good week. So now we saw Chief Priest saying that, you know what? I'm not going to back Tinubu. Nollywood actor Alapini reverses stance to back Tinubu in 2027 re-election. In June 2025, Alapini publicly lamented campaign for Tinubu in 2023, saying he and other actors got no promised support like daily allowances or aid from figures such as MC Oluomo, Seyi Tinubu. But on November 20, new video shows him in traditional Yoruba attire, rallying crowd with slogan like Tinubu 2027 and hope renewed. Ex-user accused him of opportunism, speculating he received the payout after meeting Seyi in October. Though no confirmation exists, the backlash highlights frustration with flip-flopping influencers amid Nigerian economic woes. Yeah. So they said he has been paid because he said he was not going to support him, but now he's saying that he's going to back him. Right? Getting ready to campaign for Tinubu while the nation is going to ruins. This can't continue. This can't continue. I'm not gonna read what he's saying, but this just can't continue. This is a time we need to discuss and talk about the future of this country. It's just crazy. Yesterday I was going through this. Let me look at this. I'll watch you later. Okay, this, yeah.
You're a senior fellow of the Africa program. And
so
CSI.
This was the, I'm going to just listen to a few of some of the points here. I'm not going to finish it now. We still have like 1 hour, 20 minutes left. So yesterday, the US Congress met to deliberate about Nigeria being named the country of a particular concern. And I've been listening to the hearings. I mean, there were a lot of back and forth, a lot of arguments here yesterday. Again, this is what happened in the United States yesterday. So let me just go ahead.
Foreign policy leader with 2 decades of experience shaping policy and engagement on Africa and U.S.-Africa relations. Most recently, she served as director of the Africa program at the Wilson Center, where she led research and programs that centered African knowledge and agency in developing actionable strategies to address critical issues facing Africa and the U.S. Relations. I would like to yield now such time as she may consume, and then to you as well, to our witnesses. Nina.
Okay, let me move it up a little bit.
Muslim herders who kill, rape, or kidnap residents, all the while shouting the jihadi battle cry, Allahu Akbar. Bishop Nnamdi, who testified today as well, and I'm honored to be part of this hearing with him, related that 20 parishes in his diocese have been shut down because of these attacks. Wow. Moreover, he said Nigeria's government was doing nothing to stop this. I agreed in my testimony then that Nigeria should be designated a CPC precisely because the relentless and systematic Fulani attacks targeting Middle Belt Christians are carried out with complete government impunity. By contrast, the government is fighting the terror groups in the north. So this is really key to understanding why CPC is warranted in this case. The bishop's frank testimony required heroic courage. He soon began receiving death threats. A few weeks later, Fulani militants attacked his home village and massacred 12 of his relatives and scores of others. The priest directing his Justice and Peace Office, who took the body counts and came to the aid of survivors in such attacks, has been forced to take temporary leave after credible threats to his life. Mr. Chairman and White House, Mr. Chairman, you and White House officials who had met with Bishop Nnamdi were appalled when you heard of this. The attack was part of the brutal pattern seen in hard-hit Benue and various other Middle Belt states, but it also raised the concern that this attack was in reprisal for his testimony to Congress, one organized not simply by nomadic herders, but by those in Nigeria who are close observers of Washington. 2 weeks after that incident, Yelawada, which is, by the way, only 5 miles from the state capital of Makurdi, that's Benue State, was hit by a large Fulani raid. Others have spoken about that. Over 270 Christians were murdered, and the victims included some who had been displaced from their hometowns by prior Fulani raids and had sought refuge in Yelawada because there's a military garrison there. The Nigerian troops there did not put up a fight against the dozens of, and it was only dozens, of Fulani attackers who swarmed in on motorcycles and some on foot, wielding assault rifles and machetes as their weapons.
So they get weapons, they get bicycles. There is a supplier. I don't even know who is supplying those bicycles. There's an heavy contract for those supplying those bicycles. Motorcycles, rather. Not bicycle, motorcycles. Who are those providing them with the weapons? Who are those providing them with massive weaponry, massive motorcycles? Because those motorcycles are not manufactured in Nigeria. We know who these people are. The government knows who these people are. The problem is the indecisive nature of Tinubu. And unfortunately right now, 2027, seems to be locked and loaded for him. But who knows, right? Who knows? Who knows? I saw someone saying that no matter what Tinubu does, he's not coming back in 2027. He said no matter what he does, I'm still waiting to see the strategy to take him out. Out of the race, out of presidency, not take him out literally. I'm still waiting. What's the strategy? Because I don't see any. I don't see any right now. And this is him,
thank you very much.
He's saying that Tinubu supporters stop dreaming. No amount of defection can stop his defeat in 2027. So a side of me will say, okay, fine, he needs to go because he's not performing on security. Another part of me is saying that, is this a strategy? That every time you have a southern president, there must be this heightened level of kidnapping and all that to change the discussion? Hi, Stephen, welcome to the show. I'm just saying, is this a strategy? Even though Tinubu used this against Goodluck Jonathan in 2014, this is 2024, 10 years after, we have a southern president. Once they declared that, Tinubu is no longer for the North, he's been doing a lot of reforms, carrying a lot of stuff away from the North. Like you had all this commission that was developed for all of the region. He also said, okay, let's build law schools across the whole region. Let's just have everything in the North. He did the VAT stuff. The North was also against him for some of the sharing formula for the VAT. Is this a way to trigger some level of political benefit? Because let me listen to what this guy has to say. Galadima tells Tinubu to stop dreaming. Says no amount of defection can stop his defeat in 2027. This same guy.
Glad and highly elated that I'm part of this celebration today. Birthday of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, and also the 10 years of his foundation. As all know, Jonathan is a man of peace. He is the greatest Democrat.
But did you guys give him peace when he was the president? Again, I'm not taking away from the misconduct, because again, most of these people, they care about themselves. I'm not taking away from the misconduct of Jonathan when he was in power, but I'm just saying that did you give him peace when he was in office?
Of our time. Because in contemporary history, there was no African leader that voluntarily relinquished power and accepted the verdict of the people. And he's a man of peace in the sense that Jonathan, when president, had been a listening president.
Okay.
First, you know, when we demonstrated against him, when he increased fuel price,
what's he
in
saying?
his own magnanimity,
okay, I just want to get to the Tinubu part. Okay.
He listened to the voices of the electorates.
I mean, yeah, fast forward, they shouldn't have listened, because then we saw the massive fraud that came from that subsidy not being removed.
And withdrew that increase. You also know that Jonathan, as president, was to conduct elections in 2015. When the security in the country was not palatable, he had the magnanimity to postpone that election and stepped it down by 6 weeks. Most African presidents could have used that chaos to declare themselves president of the country. And you all know that Jonathan also, as president, even before the elections and counting was concluded, he had the large heart, having seen the obvious figures against him, called his counterpart and congratulated him for winning an election. I hope Nigerian leaders and contemporary African leaders will emulate this gentleman called President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. Well, it's not only this government. All governments in Africa, and indeed in the third world, should learn from the lessons, the actions, and the attitudes of President Goodluck Jonathan as a Democrat. And since he left public office, you know and I know that he has never rested, because Africans and indeed the third world had called for his counsel and had called for his genuine neutrality in supervising elections across Africa. I want to assure you that anybody that thinks he can pocket the opposition by forcing governors and senators to join him to win election, the man is living in wilderness.
Okay.
In Nigeria, there would always be opposition, and there would always be people and political party that can stand up to any situation, including the NNPP.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Yeah, we'll see. But again, the opposition needs to do a better job. Right now, they're in disarray. Let's go on.
This has been going on for years, again, with government impunity. Similar attacks are taking place elsewhere in the Middle Belt. To give one recent example, Catholic priest Father George Dogo told the outlet Truth Nigeria, which is directed by former State Department official Douglas Burton, that 10 days ago in Taraba, Fulani militants stormed through a local government area, indiscriminately killing 20 people and burning and damaging homes and churches. A survivor, Christiana Joseph, a 33-year-old farmer from Amadu village, told Truth Nigeria that as she was preparing to go to early morning mass, a Fulani militia arrived on motorcycles and shot into her house. She is quoted stating, "They fired for about 5 minutes, shouting Allahu Akbar. When the gunfire stopped, I went inside and found my husband of 14 years, John Joseph, already dead." Wow. Survivor Samson Haruna also stated that attackers on motorcycles with AK assault rifles strafed houses in his neighboring village. He said, "My neighbors, David Bawa and Titus Gregory, lost 5 family members between them. My house was riddled with bullets." According to the Truth Nigeria report on this Taraba attack, quote, "The Fulani militants that attacked were led by warlord Alhaji Tukur, according to community leader Usa. Wakori Diocese Bishop Mark Nzukwan called the crisis overwhelming and said that 335 Catholic churches have been destroyed and more than 300,000 Catholics there have been displaced beginning in 2015. That's just in his diocese. According to the head of a local security consultancy, Fulani militants plan and stage their attacks from an abandoned resort now overgrown with vegetation called Danjuma Farm that the Fulani use as a cover for cattle grazing, he said. That's the head of this security agency. But that's just a smokescreen. And he commented that if the government wants to stop the attacks, they must clear out the terrorists from Danjuma farms. In a Daily Post Nigeria article, Reverend John Lekel, the director of social communications for the Wakuri Diocese, that's the same diocese that I've been talking about, described the situation as devastating, revealing that many rural parishes have been abandoned following sustained assaults that have claimed multiple lives and destroyed entire villages. Bishop Nzukwen told the respected ACI Africa outlet last year that, quote, if peace is restored, the region's rich agricultural landscape could provide a prosperous future for its residents. Instead, he said, there is food scarcity because of these constant attacks. And there are countless reports like this across the Middle Belt. I mention this one because it shows that Abuja has failed to act even when the Fulani aggressors are identified and their base from which they launch repeated attacks are known. This represents not only a hard...
You have the base. You have the attackers. You know where they are. You've mapped out a strategy. Okay? Yeah. No, not just the North alone. That 500 in the North, that's a lie. Churches are not that much. Oh, really?
Horrifying pattern of severe persecution by Fulanis targeting largely Christian areas, but also a shocking pattern of government tolerance of this persecution. I want to give one last example from Plateau State that occurred a month ago. The Reverend Ezekiel Dechomo of Plateau, who is the regional chairman of the Church of Christ in Nations, told journalist in Jos on October 24 that Islamic extremists have threatened to murder him from calling on the Nigerian and U.S. governments to help protect Christians against genocide. He told the Christian outlet Morning Star News, quote, my life is in grave danger. Even as I speak, I am on the lookout for attacks. I no longer sleep with my eyes closed. I have been attacked before, but escaped. The threats came after he appeared in a video on October 15, standing in a mass grave containing the remains of a dozen slain church members, reportedly killed by Fulani herders. And Mr. Chairman, there have been hundreds of priests and pastors killed in the last 15 years, targeted. Not as the State Department reports that they were walking alone or unguarded on a road at night, but they've been attacked and killed in their rectories, homes, and inside their churches. As the Nigeria government issues denials and watches passively, with no Fulanis prosecuted and no Nigerian forces prepared to defend the vulnerable, the Christian death toll from Fulani militia attacks alone, leaving aside the terror attacks from Boko Haram and ISWAP and the others, is in the thousands, and Christian survivors in displacement camps number in the millions. The respected research group opened.
So someone said that there are not, that 33,000 churches in the North is a lie. Okay, fine. So again, this is a source, and you could debate that. But they said from July 2009 to September 2025, International Society for Civil Liberty and Rule of Law said 19,100 destroyed or looted or violently closed, averaging 1,200 a year. 80 to 90%, 6,100 additional since mid-2015 in states like Borno, Kaduna, and Plateau State. This includes the burning and forced shutdown, northern focus on Boko Haram, ISWAP, and Fulani's attack. Again, that's a source saying over, where's the scrolling stuff here? Okay, then you have another one saying actually it's approximately 6,100 from 2015 to 2025. And then Open Doors, 2019 to 2023, not specified, but it says 55% of 16,769 Christian civilian deaths by Fulani militants. So these are the numbers there. There's another one that says that from 2019 to 2024, 200 to 300 targeted church attacks. Okay? Part of 50 religious-based civilian attacks in 1 year alone. So again, that's from 2019 to 2024. Okay. So someone is saying, woman, tell us the main reason you want to intervene in Nigeria.
Open Doors cites Nigeria as now the world's most dangerous country for Christians because of their religion. Again, at this time, most Nigerian Christians are being murdered by Fulani militia.
You people know about this. Stop funding terrorists, these terrorists. So now this claim is saying that, okay.
And they are the militia's special target. Aid to the Church in Need reported last month, quote, and this is a pontifical foundation that says this, Nigerian Christians in the Middle Belt are bearing the brunt of violent attacks from those identified as Fulani militants.
So if the United States of America is the one funding terrorism in Nigeria, shouldn't the current president of Nigeria, call them out? I think the buck stops at his desk. I think he's the #1 security officer of the country. There's been stories, there's been a lot of there have been some reporting of how some of these monies have made their way to this terrorist. Monies from the United States AID, US AID. Again, shouldn't the president, who is the #1 security officer, call them out on that? I was reading it, like we get nothing less than $500 million from the United States every year. I don't know where the money is going. Who is receiving some of this funding? Because I don't get any.
Some insist that the violent aggression by the Fulani herders against the Christian farmers on their own land is the unavoidable result of climate change.
You can't call them because it's
have finally described these indiscriminate mass killings as clashes between two socioeconomic groups who fight over scarce resources brought on by climate change.
They should resign.
Religion has nothing to do with it, they claim. This justification of Fulani violence has recently shifted. Now it is generally acknowledged that Christians are being murdered in cold blood, but it is being argued that more Muslims are killed in the violence, and this proves it has nothing to do with religion, they say. This argument is not factual, and it is irrelevant for CPC. The premise that more Muslims than Christians are killed is debatable, as the scholarly Observatory for Religious Freedom in Africa documents. In any case, most Nigerian Muslims live in the north, where Boko Haram and a plethora of ISIS and al-Qaeda-linked Islamic terrorist groups attack them and non-Muslims alike, and this violence, too, is religiously based. However, significant for CPC criteria, the Nigerian military is actively fighting those terror groups in the north.
I also agree that Tinubu is afraid. He's even scared for his life. I fully agree. He's in the midst of them and you don't even know who is who. They've taken over different hierarchies of government. There's a conspiracy against Nigeria. But again, I'm not the president. I wasn't voted into office. He was voted into office. He grabbed it, he snatched it, he ran away with it. So it's his prerogative and his job to do. Yeah. Okay, I might need to go.
By contrast, in the Middle Belt, where most of the Christians are being killed in recent years, and where Christians are the special target of Fulani herder militias, the government isn't lifting a finger against the Fulani militants. Instead, it is tolerating them and denying it is happening. I've also heard about sporadic Christian attacks on Muslim villages. To the extent that the government is not taking action in those cases.
Oh, I've not heard that. That's new to me. You mean they're taxing some villages in Nigeria? More like this Muslim tax, if they don't come by, you pay tax. I've not heard of that.
That is further reason for CPC designation.
Wow.
Political momentum to list Nigeria among the world's worst persecutors gained throughout October as the annual CPC review neared the year-end deadline, and reports of massacres kept coming. On October 21, the Pontifical Foundation, Aid to the Church in Need, issued its World Survey that reported, quote, "The number and ferocity of the attacks on Christian villages in the Middle Belt have led some experts to conclude that these incursions are a deliberate land grab to remove Christians and Islamize the region," end quote. Various high-level White House officials and the State Department were also hearing from groups of religious freedom activists on Nigeria. Later that week, President Trump made the CPC designation. For the first time, the issue of Fulani militias targeting Christians for mass murder received official U.S. acknowledgement.
Fair enough, yeah.
When Secretary Rubio addressed this. This, in turn, got the attention of Nigeria's President Tinubu, who said he is willing to work with the U.S. Until now, he has not shown the political will to stop this Fulani violence. CPC, as you know, is a two-step process. The next step in this process requires the president to adopt a policy response. And we heard today from the State Department about what is being considered. And there are several actions that I also endorse. One is it's been raised before by Representative Moore, and it's my first recommendation: disarm Fulani herders. These militias are loosely organized. They don't have explosives or drones, don't use tunnels, suicide vests, or propaganda films. They are an unsophisticated, but nevertheless lethal force because they come armed with AK-47s and 49s, while their targets have only homemade pipe guns to defend themselves with. Assault rifles, such as those used by the Fulanis, are heavily regulated by Nigeria's Firearms Act and illegal for the targeted Christian farming villages. The act specifically only allows homemade what are called Dane guns, cap guns, and another muzzle-loading guns. The act thus outlaws the firearms that would match the assault rifle firepower of Fulani militias and leaves the peaceful Christian communities essentially defenseless. President Tinubu should order the removal of Fulani heavy weapons, raiding their encampments at Dan Juma Farm in Taraba and other places in the process. He should direct the powerful cattle breeders associations, such as the Mayetiala Cattle Breeders Association, to cooperate in doing this. Two, fortifying targeted areas. So U.S. foreign aid in Nigeria in recent years has amounted to about $1 billion annually. Areas targeted by these Fulani militias should receive some of this aid to securely return home and reclaim their properties, rebuild, and defend themselves. For example, this aid could go toward intelligence sharing, the training and equipping of local private security guards, as well as other measures.
Yeah, in terms of it's called JIZA, bro, tax non-Muslim. Yeah, I'm aware. I'm saying that, do we have that currently being practiced in the north in Nigeria? That's what I'm asking. I know all these, like, number one, you capture them, you make them pay tax. If they don't convert, right? If they refuse to pay tax, then you can actually unalive them and all of that. You can take them as slaves and all that. Yeah, I'm aware, but I'm saying in Nigeria today, in the north, is that being practiced? Do we have more like a group? I mean, you could say indirectly, but do you have that expressly been practiced? I've not heard any reporting on that one locally. This is the first time I'm hearing that is actually being done here, taking people as slaves. I mean, I understand the capturing and the kidnapping that has been happening, but I'm saying that this one where you put tax on people, like more like a VAT tax on someone. That's crazy.
Again, the Fulani militias are not the formidable foes seen in ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and their attacks could be prevented relatively easily, prevented and defended against by these basic measures. Humanitarian aid is important, and this should be for the victims of Fulani herder militia attacks, and this should be distributed through trusted local providers, including through the churches on the ground that are currently one of the main aid providers to the survivors of these attacks.
That's crazy.
And it's it's just, again, tragic and ironic that productive farmers now need food aid since they have been driven from their Middle Belt farms. 4, sanctions against those aiding, abetting, and granting impunity to the Fulani herd and militias, including those sanctions should include high-level officials in the criminal justice system and the military. The U.S. should gather intelligence regarding official responses to the Fulani herder militias and review possible visa and Magnitsky sanctions for those aiding and abetting. The Fulani warlords' names are known or knowable. Out of all the, I think it's important to understand that out of all the violent attacks by Fulani herder militias, there have been only a few arrests. One involved the prosecution of a Fulani herder who was convicted of destroying melons at a melon company who received a 10-year sentence. It shows the government can get tough when it wants to. And 2 high-profile legal cases of violent attacks on Christians have seen movement in recent months.
There's a practice, if you don't know, in some areas in the north, before you harvest, you have to pay their tax. It is deeper than you think. Wow. Thanks for the follow. Wow. Yeah. I know that they have this, their art, they have the cows and all that. They go to the farms to destroy their crops and all those. But that you have to pay them because, you know, they have about 22 local government area that they are collecting tax from the villagers in order to allow them to harvest their crops. Wow. If there's any link to this, I want to actually cover that. And that makes it actually difficult to even stem this thing out because it's now kind of rooted and widespread. So it's not just like you have terrorists standing in a place. And I did play a video how, you know, Trump was able to decisively destroy ISIS. I'm going to look for that clip and play it again. That those guys in Abuja would never tell you what you need to do. These people need to be treated with an iron hand. I'm gonna just go off camera now, but I'll keep this playing. It still has like 1 hour more. And then I'll just come back and finalize.
Once concerns the Catholic Church of St. Francis in Ondo, where terrorists killed some 40 worshipers on Pentecost Sunday in 2022. Depositions are being taken in that case. Ondo's bishop recently told me, but the trial has not yet started. It's important to note that's not in the Middle Belt, it's in the South. The 5 suspects being held are said to be part of the East African Shabab terror group and are not members of the Fulani herder militia. The other case involves the Yelawada massacre itself, where charges are have been filed against 5 Fulani herders in September in an extremely rare example of prosecution that I believe is attributable to the pressure raised by the CPC debate in Washington. Finally, the International Religious Freedom Act suggests as a possible policy response to CPC designation a binding agreement with the country to prevent further violence. So I think that is something that should be considered as well. Unfortunately, President Tinubu hasn't shown the political will so far to direct the police and military action within his power. And he argues that because the police force is centralized under the Constitution, he is overwhelmed. He says that a constitutional amendment is required to give back policing power to the governors of the states, and that could take years. However, right now there exist legal ways he can shore up defenses within the targeted Christian areas. For example, decentralizing police commands internally, or empowering local guards, or deploying more mobile police units to states, and prioritizing referrals of state governor police orders for presidential review. So I suggest that the U.S. enter into a binding agreement with Nigeria to ensure this needed police protection against the Fulani militias. Since President Trump's CPC designation, I note some Nigerian officials, including generals of a force in the southern state of Ondo, who cite worries about securing Nigeria's wide open border, already asked for U.S. partnership in an effort to help to quote, help flush out Fulani ethnic militia terrorists from the Southwest. Thank you.
Michelle, thank you so very much for that very well thought out testimony. I mean, you have so much in there, and I'll go back and read it to pull out much of what you have just conveyed to the committee. So thank you for that. And I'd like now recognize our next witness, Ms. Anabugu.
Thank you very much. Chairman Smith, Ranking Member Jacobs, distinguished members of the committee, I'm honored to share my views before this committee today. Just want to state that CSIS does not take policy positions, so the views represented in this testimony are my own and not those of my employer. In this testimony, I would like to reinforce the recommendations that I made before this committee in March. In addition, I would like to reflect on how this tenuous moment in U.S.-Nigeria relations provide an opportunity for both countries to work together to address the critical threats of jihadist violence and insecurity in Nigeria, and to develop a more strategic partnership. The United States and Nigeria have a complicated bilateral relationship with shared interest in counterterrorism and economic development. But this relationship is often marked by periods of friction. Nigeria wields significant continental and regional influence, but grapples with violent extremism and internal security. Nigeria's leadership in West Africa is crucial, and its ability to address its governance and security challenges will impact not only its future, but the wider region. Nigeria's instability stems from a key shortcoming. Despite 64 years of independence, it has yet to establish a national identity grounded in basic freedoms and dignity. Currently, ethnicity, religion, and language, rather than nationality, define the identity of its diverse population. Understanding the violence in Nigeria requires looking beyond its apparent religious and ethnic motivations. For me, growing up in Jos Plateau State, I've witnessed the impacts of these ongoing conflicts on vibrant communities. In addition, coming from a family involved in Christian missionary work, I recognize the shared faith between Christian communities in Nigeria's Middle Belt and those in the US, rooted in the history of American missionary efforts. However, a narrow narrative that reduces Nigeria's security situation to a single story and frames it solely as the persecution of Christians oversimplifies the issue. Religious and ethnic violence is driven more by governance failures and is worsened by hate speech and conspiracy theories rather than being just a singular conflict. Nigeria is facing multiple security crises due to religious extremism, banditry, criminality, resource competition, communal disputes, and separatist agitation. These issues are intertwined with history, poverty, and political contestation. The interplay between religion and politics in Nigeria is deep and complex. Leaders often romanticize the country's unity, but fail to foster it, as we saw in the divisive 2023 elections. As Nigeria approaches another national election in 2027, religion will once again continue to influence candidate selection, voter behavior, and campaign strategies. The Trump administration's claims that Nigeria is permitting targeted killings of Christians distracts from the broader issue of extremist violence and insecurity in the country. Since returning to civilian rule in 1999, Nigeria has been a major recipient of US security assistance, primarily aimed at counterterrorism. Despite this significant assistance, the extremist threat in Nigeria has worsened, expanding from the northeast, where Boko Haram has waged a 15-year insurgency, to the northwest, where so-called bandits are raiding villages. Most victims in both of these regions are Muslims. Since Boko Haram's emergence in 2009, Nigerian administrations, including the administration of President Tinubu, have struggled to improve security. and many Nigerians across the country acknowledge that the situation has only worsened in recent years. Therefore, narratives focusing solely on the killing of Christians often overlook Nigeria's broader insecurity and the fact that religion is usually a secondary factor in the violence. Recent violence in the Middle Belt predominantly affects Christian farming communities from various ethnic groups. Victims are mostly believed to be killed by Fulani herders who are primarily Muslims. But the killings aren't explicitly motivated by religious reasons. While some community members actually describe the violence in their communities as genocidal, they often emphasize that the underlying causes are ethnic and material, such as land grabs, rather than on religious differences alone. Nevertheless, the high level of insecurity across Nigeria has left many religious communities, including Christians, at risk. The failure to hold the perpetrators of these violent acts accountable has created both a sense of impunity among the attackers and a sense of grievance in the affected communities. Nigerian citizens have mixed reactions to the US redesignation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. Many particular Christian groups welcome the attention, seeing it as a chance to push the Nigerian government to act against the violence. However, there are also concerns among many Nigerians, including Christians, that President Trump's threats of military action could also exacerbate existing political tensions. Public opinion surveys overall in Nigeria indicate a public consensus on the seriousness of the security challenges in the country, with many Nigerians valuing their diverse communities and believing in shared national unity over divisions. Now allow me to offer some concrete recommendations. First, to the United States government. It's important to engage deeply and broadly with communities across Nigeria. The US can play a constructive role, but it must avoid selective intervention and address the concerns of all Nigerians across all religions to prevent worsening sectarian divisions. Two, it's important to rethink reactive quick-win actions that may seem beneficial to Nigerians, but could have larger and far-reaching negative impacts. If the Trump administration proceeds with unilateral military action in Nigeria, it could endanger the Christians it aims to protect and worsens divisions along religious lines. Third, prioritize security governance to help tackle the violence. The US should reassess its security cooperation with Nigeria, focusing on building a program that prioritizes security governance and ties military support to tangible reforms. This renewed partnership should extend beyond military aid to include intelligence sharing, rule of law, and governance. 4, support local actors that are advancing inclusive peace and conflict resolution. Supporting moderate religious leaders and community networks in developing early warning systems can shift the focus from identity-based conflict to sustainable solutions. 5, work more with Nigeria's states and its growing city centers. The US government should decentralize its engagement with Nigeria by strengthening dialogue and support for receptive leaders at state and local levels, particularly in the Middle Belt, which is home to about 45 million people. The focus should be on local security to foster a safe environment for agriculture and manufacturing. This approach should integrate economic development with sustainable peace by addressing root causes of the conflict through economic revitalization, institutional reform, and business initiatives. Finally, for the US government, it is important to revive the US Congressional Bipartisan Caucus on Nigeria. The US relationship with Nigeria is a key strategic partnership in Africa. An active bipartisan congressional caucus will highlight this importance, foster discussions, and provide a platform for diverse perspectives to better inform legislative responses on various issues. Now, recommendations for the Nigerian government. It is important to appoint a Nigerian ambassador to the United States to improve its international engagement and manage narratives about its security realities. It's critical for President Tinubu to appoint a capable Nigerian ambassador to the US, as I also recommended in my testimony in March. Second, the Nigerian government needs to make accountability of both perpetrators and of the authorities central to the response. Nigerian citizens need justice, as criminality in the Middle Belt has increased due to impunity. The narrative of Christian genocide has gained traction because of years of mass killings without accountability, leaving many faith communities feeling abandoned. Third, Nigerian government needs to get serious about police reform. Nigeria's single federalized police force struggles to address the country's complex security challenges. The Tinubu administration needs to accelerate initiatives to improve citizen security, including the recruitment of 30,000 new police personnel he approved in June. The military in Nigeria is overextended. Many of them are handling duties that should be handled by the police. And it's essential to think about how the country reassigns police officers that are currently providing personal security to wealthy elites to focus more on the serious crimes. Next, coordinate federal and state action and messaging. Effective coordination so desperately needed among Nigeria's federal and state governments is often undermined by finger pointing, and this must stop. Finally, for the Nigerian government, it's important to start laying the groundwork for peaceful elections in 2027. Nigeria must address the use of religion as a trigger for electoral violence. The new leadership in its election commission presents a chance to restore public trust in the electoral system, promote responsible political behavior, and strengthen security and judicial processes. The violence in Nigeria has resulted in significant loss of life. However, addressing the country's complex security issues solely in religious terms and focusing on one group of victims is counterproductive. A fresh approach is needed both for Nigeria and the United States. Nigeria must tackle its institutional weaknesses in security, justice, and conflict prevention to effectively end the violence and hold perpetrators accountable. The US should engage in open dialogue and cooperation, fostering a better understanding of Nigeria's complexities. Both countries can leverage current diplomatic tensions to strengthen their bilateral relationship and collaboratively address the wider threats of jihadist violence in Nigeria and the surrounding West Africa and Sahel region, as both nations have vital interests at stake. Thank you again for inviting me to testify, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you so very much for your testimony. We do have a video I'd like to show. This is of Mrs. Akpen, a survivor of the Yelwada massacre. She lost 5 of her children. The baby in her hands is her one remaining child, but she and so many others who were slaughtered that day, her family. We hear from them, we hear from her, the priest in the picture, that the horror is, the PTSD from that is just unthinkable. And so I just want to, it's a very short but very powerful video.
Good afternoon, good evening. It depends on where you're watching us from. I am Reverend Father Philip Apple, the coordinator of the Foundation for Justice, Development and Peace, FJDP, of the Catholic Diocese of Makurdi, Benue State, here in Nigeria. I am here with one of the survivors of the Yelwada massacre of 13th of June 2025 here in Nigeria, where we lost over 200 lives in a single night. So she is here to be witness as one of the survivors of that grave attack. So we'll listen to her. That her name is Nsoshima Akpen. That when they went into sleep that fateful night, around 9 p.m., the Fulani terrorists attacked them where they were sleeping. That they were locked inside the camp, Al Yilwata, and they were butchering them with cutlasses and shooting guns as well. When they thought all had finished at some point in time, they poured petrol on the building, and most of them, majority of them, were set ablaze. That in the course of this action, she saw a tree up when she lifted up her eyes, and she raised her head on the tree, climbed up where she was able to hit herself. That her 5 children that she left below were crying, and in her presence they were being slaughtered by the terrorists.
Okay.
That she ran out into the bush at some point, and those who came for rescue would now bring her out of that place at some point, and she was able to witness the whole drama. And when the people came, they were now relocated to a new camp. So thank you very much. This is the much we can receive from Msoshima Akpen. God bless you.
Thank you very much. And we now go to questions. Let me just ask, on one of my trips to Nigeria, I did visit the Fusion Center, which there was a great deal of cooperation beginning. And I mentioned that our ambassador, Mike Waltz, to the United Nations was actually deployed there as a Green Beret and part of a special forces training component. There was a great hesitancy on the part of our government to engage that to the degree that would really make a difference. And I'll tell you what they told me. They said that they were worried about the applying the Leahy law so that we do not fund or train human rights violators. So believing that, I actually asked, I had a hearing, and Ed Royce did a hearing on the full committee, and we asked the Undersecretary of State under the Obama administration how many Nigerians could be trained. And she said, matter of factly, half. We don't need half, but a large number, half would be, that could be trained in counterinsurgency. They wanted night vision goggles. They wanted intel to track down, Boko Haram and these other then emerging groups, ISIS West Africa, for example, and it never really materialized the way it could have. Now, one of the hopes I have, and we hope many of us have, coming out of this, will be that there will be a renewed effort to, again, support human rights trained people, men and women who are not accused. And certainly that is a very difficult thing to prove one way or the other. The Leahy law is very hard to implement. And I sat through an actual session with a Foreign Service officer in Abuja as he went through names, and just to get a sense of how robust the effort is. Very, very hard to do. But again, so many can be trained. And I think what we are hoping will come out of this, in addition to a whole lot of other things, is a very highly trained counterinsurgency force that will take it to Boko Haram, the Fulani terrorists, and others. I note that just today, there's a report that just came out that the president is not going to a G20 meeting, and he's deploying additional people to a place where there were killings in Kawara. And I hope they're realizing we're not kidding in the United States. The President of the United States is absolutely committed to this. Marco Rubio is as well, and right on down. And what are we doing? We want to help, as I said earlier, those who are at risk, those who are dying, those like that wonderful woman we just saw a moment ago who lost 5 of her children. We don't want that to happen anymore. And, you know, I do believe that the art of the possible, when you have a will, when you have a focus, you can have great achievements for peace. And that's the hope here. So last night, and I know that my colleagues also had meetings with this high-level delegation, and ours went for almost 2 hours. And I said, think of us as partners. You know, yes, we do have the ability to levy sanctions, and you may not like it, but we're doing it because we care about the people in your country that are being slaughtered, both Christians and Muslims. So your thoughts on really getting this cooperation off the ground? When I was there, I talked to a lot of people, and I followed up once I got here, and they had all these recommendations. Only a few, if any, were ever carried forward with, and that's unfortunate. Some were, but I think a top-to-bottom review of what can be done, what does it take, and then meanwhile, on the humanitarian side, and we asked this last night, and Mr. Hozenga asked this as well of our 2 witnesses from the administration. You know, the government really needs to do more for its IDPs. It has not, but we want to be helpful there too. Making sure that food, medicine, shelter is available to them. So the IDP camps that I've been in were awful. One was an old hotel that was just, makeshift turned into an IDP, and that was probably one of the better ones. So your thoughts on that, on really helping Nigeria to help themselves?
Well, I think that that is important. That's the way to tackle this problem once and for all. I think that President Trump has instilled at least some political will on behalf of the government to, within the government of Nigeria, to take some action. And it's absolutely essential to do this, both because religious freedom is a pillar of U.S. foreign policy. It's in compliance with the International Religious Freedom Act, which requires the president to review every foreign country to decide whether or not to designate it as a CPC, and that annually, and the year is ending, so it was appropriate that President Trump do that again. It's going to help alleviate just unfathomable human suffering, as we've seen in that mother's eyes today, to halt Nigeria's descent into failed state status and avert possible civil war, and to not to deepen the spread of terror across West Africa. It's absolutely essential that Nigeria's government start engaging in the security of its own people. And again, there has been some willingness, political will, to fight the terror groups in the north, but there hasn't been any prosecution, so far successful prosecution, of any one from the Fulani militias at all. So I think that's...
Just say that again for emphasis. There has not been, with the Fulani militias, efforts to...
So there hasn't been, and then that is, I think, more of a police work, and warfare is very different now. There's human intelligence is getting rarer and rarer. There's drone intelligence and other forms of technological methods. But I think that it's actually a relatively easy problem to solve, relatively. And it should start with that, and simultaneously actually work on the and help locate Leah Sharibu, you mentioned, and the Chibok schoolgirls that are still enslaved. You mentioned, Mr. Chairman, the that there was intelligence sharing in the past, but nothing happened. I think that was a prime case of that. That should be pursued and can be pursued, again, fairly easily with modern technology. And it should happen across the country, including in the North. There should be cooperation and work on the terror groups and sealing the border and sharing our experience with that. President Trump's been very good with that. And we have a lot to impart. And if the government of Nigeria is willing, I think it would benefit all of us and the region.
Thank you very much. I think, consecutive U.S. administrations have defined or described the relationship with Nigeria as one of its most important on the continent. And even though that relationship has been complicated with, periods of friction, I think this moment that we find ourselves in seems as if all things have aligned. And there is an opportunity now for both the U.S. and Nigeria to come to the table to reset that relationship, especially given the fact that citizens across the board in Nigeria, every data point you look at, there's overwhelming acknowledgement that the levels of insecurity in the country are unacceptable. I think the fact that we have this coming from Nigerian citizens provides the opportunity to have real serious conversation based on concrete benchmarks for progress. The mistake that would be made is if it is seen as being a selective intervention favoring one group over the other. So there is an opportunity for Nigeria and the US to reset its relationship, one that would really be based on listening to the Nigerian people. And Nigerians are saying levels of insecurity are very high. How do we address it? So this opportunity now provides leverage to the US, working with the Nigerian government to actually show some very clear progress.
Okay, thank you very much. I would point out, and this is worth noting, because I was always perplexed with Secretary Blinken, and I asked him at hearings just like this, why he withdrew CPC, and I never got a good answer. But when we were doing the International Religious Freedom Act of 1998, I held all the hearings, most of them in this room. And John Shattuck, who was the Assistant Secretary for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, testified against it for the Clinton administration. On the record, I have all the records, you can go look at it. He said it would create a hierarchy of human rights, which is nonsense. And I even, in my response to him at one of the hearings, was to say, okay, I was all for combating apartheid, which was not a very popular thing within my party in the very beginning of the Reagan administration, and I was all for it. Did that take away any other human rights work we were doing? It was not in lieu of, it was in addition to what we were doing in any other area of human rights work. And I said the same thing about religious freedom. It is a pillar of our Constitution. It's a pillar of our, it's really a universally recognized human right. But they said it would said 1 year later, I had a hearing on, did it do that? And I had the Ambassador at Large for Religious Freedom testify, because they were all saying, Shattuck especially, it would make everything worse on religious freedom. And the word back was, even after 1 year, it was seriously advancing religious freedom. Ditto on trafficking. I was told by Harold Coe, the Assistant Secretary for Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor, right from where we're sitting right now, that most of what was in my Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000 would be counterproductive. We don't need a tip office. We don't need all of the dozens of new programs that were unleashed by that law. And there was a bipartisan law. Sam Gajenson, who sat right here with me. It was my bill, but he was our principal co-sponsor, and we really worked together to get it passed. And he was from Connecticut. And again, as we went over year and year after that, it was like, yeah, it really did help. But it was stopped in its tracks had we listened to that argument. Blinken was a part of that on the religious freedom back then. And I always felt, I could be wrong, that there was a sense that the Religious Freedom Act was not something he was terribly enamored of. So it was very easy to get rid of the CPC status for him, because he did not give a good answer when asked directly by me, and I wasn't the only one, where you sit, Nina, why? What's the why of it? And at one point he told the appropriators that none of this has anything to do with religious freedom. in terms of the violence. Really, it just doesn't pass a straight face test. So that's, in my humble opinion, one of the reasons why we had such, again, and I remind everybody, it was Clinton who signed the International Religious Freedom Act. And we didn't know if he was going to do it. At the very end, we did have veto-proof majorities to overcome a veto. But that said, he did sign it. I'm forever grateful for that. Ms. Jacobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Onumbogu, thank you for testifying again before the committee today. As you know, President Trump, in his November 1st Truth Social post on Nigeria, threatened to deploy the U.S. military guns a-blazing into Nigeria to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists there, stating that if we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet. All of those are quotes. Do you believe unilateral U.S. military strikes in Nigeria would make the situation more or less safe for Nigerian citizens?
I believe it will make it less safe.
Can you elaborate on why?
Because all the data points show us that Nigerians value diverse societies. But even as they value diverse societies, there are also experiences where overwhelmingly there are low levels of trust. Already, just from the threats that have been made, we're already seeing, especially if you go on social media, people basically forming camps and basically coming up with different conspiracy theories about what is feeding the threats that have been made by the president. So I think it's important to understand the complexities of Nigeria and understand how fragile things are in the environment, and that for years you've actually had members of the political class that have actually manipulated that public mistrust to gain power. So at this point, you hear people forming different camps and making different statements and building different conspiracy theories. I think overwhelmingly Nigerians value unity, and the conversations that are happening now are not good for Nigeria's social cohesion.
Thank you. And I do want to dig a little bit more into that because it's not just the actual military strikes that would cause problems, but we've actually already seen that even just these threats and rhetoric have had immediate consequences. I've personally heard anecdotes of this happening already in Nigeria. You mentioned it in your opening statement that this was a risk. Could you expand on this and explain how inflammatory rhetoric can make tensions within communities even worse and actually lead to the very violence and targeting that this administration says it's trying to counter?
So as I mentioned, because of the low levels of trust that we see in communities, all we have to do is date back to several conflicts that have occurred over time in different parts of Nigeria. And we've seen how some of them have been driven by conspiracy theories or hearsays. And in many ways, rhetoric like this could actually be detrimental because it moves us farther away from finding a real solution to the problem. All we have to do is just look at over the last few weeks since the threats were made and to just listen to all the different conversations and discussions happening. None of them have actually come out with real solutions from the side of the Nigerian government or from civil society or the international community. Everyone is all focused on what has been said. So it moves us farther from finding solutions, and especially in environments like those in the middle belt where we've seen protracted conflicts. Time and time again, as you engage in these communities, you realize that while people live together, there are very low levels of trust, and it's extremely important that we keep that in mind because very little things can inflame tensions that already exist in the country.
Thank you. You've talked a lot about this deficit of trust, lack of trust, about the sort of crisis of governance in Nigeria. How should Nigeria fix this problem, and how should the United States work with Nigeria to address it? Like, what would you advocate as the type of diplomatic actions and U.S. investments that would make sense here?
I think most importantly, for this situation, Nigeria needs to take the lead and literally summon the utmost political will in this regard. As I mentioned in my testimony, a lot of these narratives have continued because people, Nigerians are not getting the justice that they deserve. And unfortunately, it's breeding an environment where there's a sense of impunity, where those who carry out attacks, regardless of what religion they come from, they feel they can continue those attacks. And then the communities, there's a sense of grievance where at the end of the day, if they feel that the government isn't coming to their aid, they come up with their own narratives. So at the end of the day, there needs to be an acknowledgement on the part of the Nigerian government. Nigeria needs to take the lead. Nigerian leaders need to summon the political will and work with their allies and partners, such as the United States, to be able to address this violence. You know, at the end of the day, we may put out numbers there and talk about the numbers of victims, but it's important for us to put a face to these numbers. The violence has gone on for so long in Nigeria. So Nigeria needs to take the lead, work in partnership with allies such as the US, and there is a moment here, there is an opportunity here for folks to come to the table to really find a sustainable solution to this problem.
Thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. And Ms. Shea, appreciate you highlighting the issue of the disarmament of Fulani militants. I think that certainly would be one of these solutions. Obviously, there's not a singular one. It's a multifaceted problem that's going on here in different regions of the country, and there's a lot of complexities to it. But as we've heard, I think, a couple times here, and I do agree with, there is an opportunity here for the Nigerian government to strengthen, deepen, and broaden their relationship with the United States if they will do that in coordination and cooperation with the United States government. When I met with the delegation, as Mr. Smith met with them as well, that was one of the messages that I gave to them, is that there is an opportunity here, but you're going to have to take that opportunity. And I am very hopeful that they will do that, because myself and Chairman Smith and President Trump, we've had enough of this. This cannot continue to go on in the manner that it has, and it now has the president's attention. And I do agree that, you know, you get all this kind of information flying around out here that many times is not helpful. I recently saw the foreign minister was in some interview, I think it was Piers Morgan, and it was the same thing when they came here and some of us spoke to them, just disputing these numbers, right?
I saw that interview. I saw that interview where the guy, I think it's called, his name is Tuga, right? The foreign minister. And the guy couldn't even give numbers. He couldn't give succinct numbers, accurate numbers of what was happening in Nigeria. And I was like, what the hell was happening here? Your Smith says Nigerian government believes in lying to you. Many people have been killed every single day here in the whole country. I mean, look at what happened this morning with the kidnapping. Please, the United Nations is broken. Should act fast and save people's lives in Nigeria. United Nation is broken. Yeah. Let's ignore rhetorics. Action should be promptly taken to avert a possible civil war. We should all know what the ripple effect would have on West Africa, Europe, and the entire world. Again, people might think that, you know what, this thing would just continue and there is no help. At some point, there's just a limit to which you can push law-abiding citizens. They don't own the gun, the terrorists own the gun. So what's up with this rule about not owning gun in Nigeria? Did you see what happened in Mexico? Just a few days ago, the people rose up. They were like, the government has been supporting the drug cartels. So they took laws into their hands. Once I'm done with this, I'll take you to Mexico to go and talk to our Latino brothers and sisters, how those guys are fighting. They believe that the cartel has been terrorizing them. They've been terrorizing them badly.
Years, there's only 177 Christians have been killed. I don't think there's anybody who believes that.
No,
right?
nobody.
And I don't think that it's necessarily constructive on their part to try to downplay what's happening here.
Yeah.
But Michelle, I'd ask you, how do you think about the differences, though, in between some of these statistics?
Can you see this guy behind him? Well, you guys can see it on the vertigo. The guy is not moving at all.
Been reported, obviously, have non-governmental organizations.
He's not trying to blink.
That it seems to me have robust on-the-ground informational networks,
bro,
and those offered by the Nigerian government. How do we have such a huge disparity in the numbers in between what we're saying, or what some of these groups on the ground are saying, and then the foreign minister saying there's 177.
Because they care less. They don't care. They don't care about who dies. They don't care about what happens. It's that bad. That's why the government can't even give you accurate numbers of what has been happening.
Christians killed in the entire country of Nigeria over the last 5 years. That which is just hard to believe. It seems that number was achieved likely in just the last couple months. But please.
Yes, you're right. It's huge disparity. And assuming it's not just propaganda, one of the reasons why there is a range of numbers for any particular event is that precisely because the government doesn't do any police work. So there's no one that comes in to prevent it, or to during its occurrence to stop it, or in the immediate aftermath. So the witnesses have fled for their lives. There's chaos. There's destruction everywhere. The evidence has been tampered with or been deteriorated by the time people come along. It's very hard for the local pastors and priests who are the ones there taking the body counts, helping the survivors. It's very difficult for them to do that job and at the same time do documentation. They do it as best as they can, but the numbers are far larger than that foreign minister is saying. I also want to say that I think that President Trump's designation of CPC has been extremely important. He has gotten the attention of the government of Nigeria. We've heard that there's a high-level delegation in Washington today discussing this with the United States.
I met with them yesterday.
Yeah, so I think that this has been a very beneficial exercise thus far. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. And we've heard several people mention early warning systems, and I do agree with that. I think that those can be helpful. But I do want to highlight a case that just happened recently in the Plateau State. We had a pastor there who had warned the Nigerian government and said, we are under imminent threat. We're going to face an attack if you all don't send some forces here in the next 24 hours. We need help. Please come here and help us.
I saw that.
The Nigerian government not only ignored it, they literally put out a press release about it, calling it fake news and hyperbole and being overblown. Well, 13 people lost their lives the next day. 13 people murdered. Christians murdered. I don't know how much an early warning system is going to work if people aren't listening to warnings that are literally over the phone. I'm not sure. So I'd say to the Nigerian government, you're going to have to, and we keep using the term prioritize this because it's certainly a priority for President Trump. And I think many of us on this panel here today on this dais, but I just wanted to highlight that because that is the type of behavior that has to change, because, and to your point of people not trusting the government, how can you trust a government that doesn't even show up when you ask them to? How are you supposed to trust your life with something like that? You can't. Obviously, you can't. And I think that's why it's incumbent upon the Nigerian government to work with us in coordination and cooperation to address these issues. Obviously, there's going to be
the level of injustice
some type of
and
bifurcated
insecurity we're
approach to this.
facing
The
in Nigeria is incredible. It's crazy.
Islamic militant issue
Crazy,
in the middle
crazy.
belt of the country is distinctly different from what you face with Boko Haram and ISIS in the northeast of the country, and that's probably more of a question of kinetic military options rather than some of the other things that maybe State Department could do more in the middle belt, backed up by some of those same type of at least military deterrence options in that part of the country. But I think it does need to be a kind of whole of government approach to this, but we have to have the Nigerian government as a willing partner in all of this. Because the president is, as Chairman Smith just said, extremely serious about this. I'm extremely serious about this. I stay up at night. It's hard to sleep sometimes thinking about this, and I pray about it every single night.
Oh, wow.
Just thinking about, my own brothers and sisters in Christ in that country just getting murdered for the profession of their faith, our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So it is absolutely heartbreaking. But I do want to thank the chairman again for convening this hearing, as he has over the many years and been working to advocate.
When would the Nigerian Senate have a hearing like this? When would the Nigerian House of Representatives have something like this? When would they do their own investigation and come out with their own facts or alternative facts with respect to the plague of insecurity that has befallen the country? At least they could do an independent investigation. All of this report should be always be examining the house. Like if they are meeting every week, this should be one of the major things. At least a day should have been focused on this in the National Assembly. What is Akpabio doing aside having issues with Natasha and every other people? What are they doing? The same thing with the opposition. Let's forget that the APC is a lost case. What is the opposition doing with respect to this? Because in 2014, the oppositions were the one going up and down. Again, if Obi goes to the US to say, okay, fine, let's talk about insecurity, they will say, oh, he's running a parallel government. I'm just saying. But there's a style to this. There's a method to this madness. What are they doing? What is CAN and PFN doing?
For people of Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore, and thank you for your leadership. Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your leadership. To Mr. Nnamdi, what do you see as the primary drivers of religious freedom violations in Nigeria? And secondly, what are the political, economic, social, and historical factors that exacerbate the situation?
Thank you, Congressman. I really think it's a mix of factors here that we're looking at. A mix of factors here. And as I mentioned in my testimony, at the core of this are failures of governance. There needs to be an opportunity to address the governance deficits that we see across the board in Nigeria at every level. And I think sometimes when we look at this issue, it's also important because we haven't been able to take a look at it from a whole of government, from a holistic point of view. It's important for us to understand what are the areas that really encompass more institutional weaknesses, and then what are the areas that are plainly just a lack of political will. And so I think, again, as I had mentioned earlier in my earlier response, there is an opportunity here to actually begin to identify what are the areas, what are the institutional weaknesses that exist within the Nigerian system that allow or enable the environment for the violation of religious freedoms. And then what are the instances where it's just plain old lack of political will. Once we're able to do that, then you'll be able to identify a proper solution to a problem. Right now, we haven't been able to identify a proper solution. And this is why
we haven't been able to identify a proper solution for the past 20 years. What? What? Wow. I don't know if that's true, but again, I think we know the solution. It's just we don't want to face the reality. I mean, I don't know, but I think we know the solution. We know those who are doing the killings. We just don't want to face the reality. If you kill by the sword, you die by the sword, bro. We just don't want to face the reality. Or somebody's political ambition is bigger than the life of those that are in the boarding house schools in Niger State. It's bigger than those worshiping in Kwara State. Or the political ambition of somebody is bigger than those that were kidnapped in Kwara State also a few months ago. The political ambition of someone is bigger than those that were killed, 50 people killed in Owo in the Southwest. So we know the solution. I don't think we saying we don't know the solution is an appropriate way to talk about this. The problem is that we've got a president that seems to be under siege, or maybe has no balls to tackle the issue, because he faced economic reforms thinking that security would just get by. You only changed the service chiefs a few weeks ago, and even at that, they were like, okay, fine. It was because the current service chief was actually repelling a lot of killings. Now we'll see what is happening. The moment between when you change the service chief and when the other service chief takes over, that's a very crucial period that you have to ensure that there are no gaps. So where are the gaps coming from? Because they were doing handover ceremony. I'm like, this country is under siege. We're under attack. They were doing handover ceremony. I'm not saying you shouldn't celebrate the person leaving, but dude, this is an emergency situation. Yeah, I don't know what you need to identify a proper solution for something that's been plaguing the nation for 20 years. Maybe you have to close down the National Assembly, send all these people home. Maybe we can then have a solution.
These conflicts are protracted and they've continued time and time again.
Well, thank you so much. It's also very peculiar. I'd like for it to be noted in the record as we look forward to the great works of the continent and Africa as it marches and rises towards 2050, where 25% of the world's population will be of African descent. And this country, the United States, seems to talk down to African people. Historically, I would say that the United States is a very generous nation, and in some ways the most generous nation, but has the most peculiar cruelty towards the African continent, and it must be confronted about its legacy. The second thing is we are right now in a hostile environment with the Republic of South Africa and Nigeria, the nation's two most populous countries, if you will, or certainly two most prosperous countries that should be dealt with. I have another question for you. Based on your experience, which types of U.S. government programs or initiatives have been past or present, have been most effective in promoting religious freedom and interfaith dialogue in Nigeria?
Thank you very much for that question. And for several years, I actually worked specifically in the Middle Belt on these types of community security initiatives. And we've seen local level peace building initiatives where communities have been able to, and most importantly, as a community led by the communities, they've been able to put in place early warning systems, and beyond those early warning systems, moving a step further to ensure early response. Because, as has already been pointed out, it's of no use if people are able to raise an alarm and no response comes through. So over the years, we've seen some successful low-level peace-building programs across the Middle Belt, community-led peace-building programs. We've also seen programs that have included religious leaders from both faiths, particularly in places like Kaduna, in Adamawa, in Benue, in Plateau State. We've seen interfaith mediation councils where Muslims and Christian leaders have been able to come together to work closely with their communities. Those types of initiatives we've seen have been very successful.
Last question I would have for you. In its effort to dismantle the USAID program, the Trump administration terminated a USAID program called Partner. that supported peace-building efforts to northern and north-central Nigeria. The $2 million project helped to strengthen the country's early warning and security response systems and provide training for local leaders, including religious leaders, on conflict mitigation strategies. This project, amongst others, like it helped to provide local leaders with mechanisms to alert law enforcement to possible conflicts before it happens. Partner also helped facilitate communications between farmer and herder, community leaders, often individuals from different religious backgrounds, in an attempt to bridge the gap between the two groups. Ms. Arungbu, what are some of these early warning signs of conflict? How would you describe the drivers of conflict in northern and central Nigeria? And to what extent do you assess these stem from religious and climate and resource competition?
As I said, the mix of these drivers, it's a mix and they're complex. And that's why I say, as you look at violence or as you look at a specific conflict, it's important to understand that there might be some conflicts, or there are conflicts that are specifically driven by religion. And there are some other conflicts that may have specific drivers. Where the challenge is now, or where the problem is when everything is lumped in together. You know, working for several years in the Middle Belt, when a conflict breaks out and people say, oh, it's a farmer-header conflict, it's a farmer-header conflict. Now, every type of conflict in the Middle Belt becomes a farmer-header conflict. But we need to take the time and take the step to actually identify which of these conflicts are driven specifically because of disputes between farmers and herders. Which of these conflicts are just plain old criminality, as some of them are, and then which of those conflicts are actually driven because people might be targeted because of their faith. And I think this is where we miss the point when we do not acknowledge the complexities within Nigeria, when we use a single story to define the conflict. This is why we've not been able to find viable solutions. If we go back, and I believe Ms. Shen, in the previous panel, we spoke about the Chibok girls. This was an incident that happened in 2014. And just a week ago, we saw another group of school children kidnapped from their school.
And just this morning, another group was kidnapped. Just this morning, in Niger State. Just this morning, 2 a.m. Nigerian time, West African time, they were kidnapped. I covered that earlier today. Okay.
2014 till today, we've seen 6 different incidents of kidnapping. And we've had discussions on each and every one of them. But
and now just within 1 week, we've had 3. Can you see the escalation? Something is happening behind the scene that we don't know of. I'm not talking just about something is happening behind the scene that we don't know of. And at this point, it's making me to think that there are really, really, really bigger forces that have wrapped up since Trump made the pronouncement. I'm telling you. And which is crazy. It's not a probability, but a factual statement that we in Nigeria are in a state-declaring security system. The Nigerian government element is involved. 100%. I agree. Like, I can say more.
We've not been able to identify a viable solution because we tend to oversimplify and we tend to generalize what the problems are. But for every conflict that happens in Nigeria, there are specific drivers, and we have to be able to take the time to identify what the root cause is of each specific conflict for us to be able to develop a sustainable solution.
I thank you so much for your testimony. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Jackson. Mr. Stutzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you both for being here. Consecutive administrations here in the United States have viewed Nigeria as an important partner in West Africa. But I would say that our relationship has been less than perfect. Just last year, the Nigerian government wrongly detained Tigran Gambarian, a U.S. citizen and former IRS agent, for 9 months on trumped-up charges of money laundering and tax evasion. Combining this with the Nigerian government's woefully inadequate response to this violence, I'm concerned that they may not have our best interest at heart. And I'd like to both of you to answer this. And Ms. Shea, maybe you can go first, but would you elaborate on the relationship between Nigeria and the United States? And do you think continued inaction on religious freedom issues will harm our relationship going forward? Does Nigeria want to have a civilized relationship with countries in the West and in Europe and other parts of the world?
Oh, thank you for your question. I think that Nigeria wants and needs the United States. And I think that many Nigerians have come to this country and continue to come to this country for education, for investment reasons, or to live. And they are among our most successful, if not the most successful immigrant group.
Yeah.
So I think that they have a lot to gain.
Once we're outside of Nigeria, we do well. It's just that's just it. And it's crazy.
And they know that from a relationship with the United States. I think I'm encouraged that the Nigerian government has an extremely high-level delegation over here talking to the Trump administration about how to improve relations.
So that the Nigerian people, for sure, is what it sounds like you're saying, want a relationship with the United States. What about the Nigerian government? I mean, to the extent that, you know, they're giving...
The Nigerian people don't want any relationship with the United States. The Nigerian people, on the most part, wants to leave Nigeria to go to the United States. So let's not mix this whole thing. Let's not mix this whole thing. No Nigerian person wants any relationship with the United States. They want to get out of Nigeria and go to the United States. The Nigerian government, that's a tough one. Do they really want a relationship with the United States? I don't know. I mean, they're collecting almost $500 million, even some years up to $1 billion from the U.S. So as much as they can collect more money from the U.S., I don't even know why we're still collecting monies from the U.S. anyways. Yeah, they would want a relationship. You know. And this problem is really big. And I think Tinubu I don't know if he has a clue what he's doing right now with respect to insecurity.
Giving us lip service on Christians being killed. I mean, do they have the ability to put a stop to the killings?
Yeah, so this video has just 6 minutes more. I would appreciate if you're interested in what we do here to help me subscribe. I'm trying to build up to get to the 500 minimum for YouTube. Before I start talking about anything on monetization, I would appreciate that. And if you're not comfortable doing that, that's also fine. Thanks for watching, and also thanks for joining the channel. We're gonna finish up this right now, and then I'll come back later today just to talk about what's been happening.
I think they have an ability to take action, which they have not done in the Middle Belt, where the Christians are the primary target. They're the special target of these militias, and the government has not lifted a finger to help them until now, and maybe not even now. But I think that the government was not given any message before. I mean, we really, this is the first year that the first couple weeks that the government of the United States has said that there is a problem, that we are not happy, you know, our law.
I feel so ashamed that every Nigerian wants to get out of Nigeria because of the massacres of unarmed people, and the government sees it as nothing. Yeah. So I remember then when Jonathan was president, I felt like the country was not going in the right direction and I wanted to leave. And then later on, Buhari came in and people were like, okay, maybe Buhari will restore order. I said, wait for 2 years. If Buhari doesn't do anything serious, I'm out of here. So that was it. And Buhari became a more serious disaster. You know, Nigeria is still right for a breakup, and it's going to be swift and sweet. There's been a lot of calls for breakup since the Nnamdi Kanu's verdict yesterday. And I still don't have a pathway to that, how that's going to work. If you say it's going to be swift and sweet, you're using Trump's line. I don't know, man. I don't know, because the politicians in the Southeast, they're not even thinking about that. They've cozied up to the Tinubu's administration from what we've seen from the Anambra results and from the pronouncement from Ohaneze. So again, I don't even know how that will go.
The International Religious Freedom Act requires us to point them out and put them on the list of the world's worst persecutors of religious freedom, violators of religious freedom. So they have not gotten that message before. Before they were told that there were root causes, that these are two socioeconomic groups, there was no mention of religion. We were told, and the chairman, Smith, was told by Secretary Blinken and others that this had nothing to do with religion.
No, that was a lie.
Now we have a new analysis, and I think that...
Again, I'm not for religious crisis, but that's a lie. That's a lie. It's not just social. There is a fundamental religious ideology that supports this kind of operation. I mean, the level of poverty also in the Southwest is staggering. In the Southeast is staggering. Why are they not, going to bomb opposing religious buildings and kidnappings? So for you to say it's poverty all around the world. But something stands clear. It's an extremist ideology. And if we don't want to face that reality, now the Blinken administration, who was the Secretary of State under Joe Biden, we knew how the Joe Biden disaster went. The guy was literally a dead man walking while he was president. And to think he wanted to actually have a second time, that's just beyond me.
We've had a very hopeful response to that.
Ma'am, I mean, are we frenemies? Are we, what are we?
We're friends. And I'm sorry, I actually missed your original question, if you could repeat.
Yeah, I'm just asking, could you elaborate on the relationship between Nigeria and the United States? And do you think that continued inaction on religious freedom issues will harm our relationship going forward? Does Nigeria, are they hearing the messages that are coming from our president, from the United States, about the concern of genocide? And not just, I realize there's people that are being killed that are both, Christian and non-Christian. But that this sort of violence cannot be tolerated.
Well, if they weren't hearing it before, they're definitely hearing it now. And I think, as I've mentioned before, there is an opportunity, and an opportunity that should not be missed in the way we convey as the U.S. how we want to work with Nigeria on this issue.
I think it's get out of the jail card for Tinubu if he wants to grab the opportunity. Because he can tell those people that are sponsoring those in his government, you see now, my hands are tied. There's nothing I can do but just to ensure that this killing stops. So again, there's a golden opportunity there. But I also noticed that every time you have a Southerner in Aso Rock, you have this kind of kidnapping. 2014, Chibok girls, right? Now 2024, you got the Muslim girls that were kidnapped in Kebbi State. And now you also have what happened today in Niger State. It is what it is.
The framing of the engagement really matters. And I think this is where the U.S. has to be strategic in its partnership. The partnership with Nigeria, as you rightfully mentioned, is one of our most important partnerships on the continent. As was mentioned, by 2050, the population of Nigeria will surpass the population of the United States.
Hi,
so
Bello.
this is definitely a relationship that we have to keep and build, but approach our dialogues from a place of honesty. And I think what we have going now in this relationship is that the Nigerian people, there is a wide acknowledgement by the Nigerian people that something needs to be done and done quickly about the levels of insecurity in the country.
Do you think the Nigerian government is capable of putting a stop to the violence?
And then this is where I say that with the Nigerian government actually looking at where the inefficiencies lie or where the weaknesses are within its institutional capacity. And I think this is where, again, being able to differentiate what are institutional weaknesses and then what is just plain lack of political will.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be an admittance of where the areas of weakness lie. And there are...
It's both. Weaknesses abound, it's clearly seen. Inefficiency, abounds, and also political will is zero. So far, so good. Zero. Because how would you justify sentencing someone that was trying to defend himself from a terrorist to death? How moronic. How stupid.
Some clear areas of
I agree, and I think they should, if they can't handle it, they should be willing to ask the international community for help. I mean, we should all be standing for life, no matter where.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll yield back.
Okay.
Thank you. As we close, guys, I just want to make a point. The U.S. Commission on...
Yeah, I really want the lady that spoke. I think people realize that she's done a good job, right? She's done a real good job there. So look at it. So someone saying that, thank you for so eloquently representing Nigeria at the congressional hearing. Your voice brought clarity, balance, and hope. Nigeria is trending when it embraces the passion and expertise of its diaspora citizens who care deeply about the country's challenges and its future opportunity. Okay, that's it. Maybe we should consider her as our president. Again, whatever. I just wanted to put that out there. Somebody give, I think this is from FFK. These are human beings like us. Let's live sentiment and end insecurity. Brigadier General Uba and 3 of his men abducted and publicly executed by Islamist terrorists in Borno State on Friday. I said this guy was attacking Trump and telling Trump that there is no genocide. 64 civilians, including women and children, abducted in local government area of Zamfara State by Islamic terrorists on Saturday. 25 female students and their principal abducted from a school in Maga, Kebbi State on Sunday by Islamic terrorists while their vice principal was killed. 38 Christians worshippers, not just worshippers, 38 Christian worshippers abducted from a church in Eruku, Kwara State yesterday. 1 policeman killed in an attack by Islamic terrorists in Gadem, Yobe State yesterday. 8 members of civilian task force killed and 3 abducted by Islamist terrorists in Gwaza, Borno State yesterday. 15 people abducted, including 4 nursing mothers and babies, and 2 killed in Sabo Breni, Sokoto State by Islamic terrorists yesterday. Rice farmer, this is a tweet made today. 4 rice farmer killed in an attack by Islamic terrorists in Edu, Kwara State yesterday. 52 students abducted in a Catholic school in Agwara, Niger State today. All these in just 1 week. May God save Nigeria. Femi Fani-Kayode. Do you want to now take back when you were telling Trump that Trump is a madman? He doesn't understand what he's talking about with the attacks happening in Nigeria. I'm just putting it out there. Now, as we close, let me just listen to this final word.
Religious Freedom in their report says that Nigeria's government has continued to forcibly close camps hosting displaced Christians who fled violence by Boko Haram, despite persistent security concerns in their communities of origin. That is a deep concern, and we're appealing to the country, to the government, I should say, of Nigeria to rectify that. I also would point out that, there's without objection, I would ask unanimous consent that a op-ed that's in National Review by Maureen Ferguson and Asif Mahmoud be included. The title is Nigerian Girls Are Being Kidnapped. Islamic terrorists have inflicted a decade of religiously motivated violence on Christian women and girls. I would note parenthetically that according to Amnesty International, April 2024, that over 1,700 children have been abducted since 2014, since the Chibok girls incident. Wow. 17 cases of mass abduction.
Add to that
it's
again.
interesting that this piece that's
gone up to like 20.
And without objection, it'll be part of the record. Maureen Ferguson was appointed to the commission by Mike Johnson, the speaker. Asif Mahmoud was appointed by Hakeem Jeffries. So there you have both sides of the aisle, both sides of the political, ideological spectrum, writing an op-ed about these girls and about this terrible sexual violence. So without objection, it is part of the record. And anything else that you'd like to say before we close? thank you so much for your leadership, your,
all right,
your
thank you, guys.
comments today.
Yep.
I want to thank my colleagues, both sides of the aisle, for
Thank you.
their very, very incisive questions.
Yeah, saw that.
And
Yeah,
we have much to
happened
do.
today.
The hearing's adjourned.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Happened today. Thanks, guys, for watching. Appreciate that. Yeah, I'll come back later today. Hopefully, we can have, we can have some respite. Yeah, it's so painful. Okay, have a good one.
I grew up in a place where they told you what to chase, told you how to run the race. Every move was on the page, but I didn't like their way. Had to fight and misbehave, had to find a way to change, had to leave to find my way. Caught up in a daydream, I beat my mind up there almost daily. It's how I pass time, no opinions safely. It's how I understand what I want in this place, see. Cause everybody wanna tell you bad things, what could go wrong, what fame brings. But success is a finicky thing, and if you ain't sure, no, it'll never be. I don't wanna let myself down, myself down. I don't wanna let myself down, myself down. Run away, I don't have to plan it. I can go, change my fate, you won't understand it. All alone, that's okay, people I can't stand, man. They don't want me to change, keep me where I'm standing. And I don't wanna be where I am, and I want something